Hello, welcome to Blaine's Escape Corner, our little corner of the internet where we get together and talk about the things we escape. We are here for the very first ever AniDebate. The current topic are cat girls, monster girls. You've been in the chat. You've been watching this show. We know where everybody stands. Today, we are going to have Michael presenting his ideas for why are cat girls not monster girls. I'll let him explain more there. And we will have Stephen Ransom, the champion of the people of normality who believe that cat girls are indeed a form of monster girl. This has been a heck of a day, a heck of a thing. I almost died earlier choking on something. I still not exactly sure what. So as degenerate as this stream may be, it is made ever more so with today's topic, and my body did not want me to be here, but I fought through. I made it. We had fun, and like something got stuck in my throat in like a weird spot. It was like, and then it went from to, and I had to actually like puke a little bit to get it out. Like that was different. That was different for me. The objective is not to die. That is correct. It's all right. I had my wife by my side. Worst things were, she could have called an ambulance. I would have been fine. However, I made it through. Potterchin, Kitty Bear, Steven, Pop Culture, E-Class, and Michael, of course, who's hiding backstage right now. Good to see everyone here. This should be a banger of a show. Steven, you should have the link in your DMs. Would have sent it earlier, but you know, the whole joking and all, and not the fun kind either. Oh my goodness, what am I doing? I need to share the video link, not the restream link. So let's make sure the world knows that we exist and we're here. We made it. All right, there we go. All right, bingo. Boom. All right. Publish that and publish this. Okay. So the idea that I have for today, I see the talking about E-Class being the judge on this. I think the whole chat gets to be the judge. So once we get into it, once we start to actually lay down the case for and against, then we will pop open a poll or the like in order to say, all right, so where's the chat at? Where are we feeling? Are people swaying? Are people on one side or the other? I know my initial position has changed, as it were. Not that I believe they aren't, but that I can start to understand the argument. Like I'm understanding the arguments, and I'm excited to see what Michael will bring to us for that side of the debate. And Steven seems pretty prepared last time we were talking. Get in here, Steven. What are you doing? Where are you? Maybe I'll send it again. Boop, boop. My wife was by my side, made it sound like you're prepared for the end. You know, when you get to my age, you're always prepared for the end. That's just how life goes. But while I wait, I am running Soto Sake. Let's get it in focus back here. Soto Sake. Sake in a can that is black, that has eyeballs with little furrowed eyebrows and this cute little open mouth design, even though it's just a dot on a black can with their name. All right. The challenger and the champion is here. Oh, it opens like a can of corn. Who makes sake like this? Oh, super strange. But it's got a lid, so worst things worst. I won't. Oh my goodness. It is just like a can of sake. So, kampai. Alrighty. I put my headphones in and let's bring in the contestants. Alrighty. We have Michael. We have Steven. All right, you guys are on screen.
Hello.
I'll put it like this so that your avatar is actually looking at Michael. Michael, can you give me an audio check here?
Audio check. And
Perfect.
here.
Okay. Steven? Audio check?
I am here.
Oh, again.
Yes. Audio check. Good.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
Again here.
Alrighty. Awesome. So the way I see this, I am just here to listen. I am the swayable audience. I guess I will say, hey, quiet. I want to hear this side if something intrigues me. But I will not. It'll only be so that we aren't talking over each other, just in case the back and forth gets too back and forthy. Because I'm very interested here. I'm very interested. We'll see. So I think, given that my take has been said a few times, and I think I'm more on the Steven side, if I remember. Michael, why don't you start us off with cat girls? Why are they not monster girls? And then Steven, if you want like a full opening statement, let me know now, I guess. Otherwise, I'll just kind of let you bounce off of whatever he says.
No, I think. I think my only opening statement is that cat girls should be considered possibly monsters until proven guilty.
Mm.
Yeah,
Joe
so
Ball, what are you
you're
doing here?
standing
Hold on. Pause the debate. Joe Ball, a real hero, has arrived. Joe Ball, do you want to sketch on this stream? Are you in sketching territory right now? I will send you a link if you want to sketch in the corner. Just hit me up. Because I love your art and I can't wait till death is finally in my hands. So I would love that. But good to see you. All right. Sorry, I had to do that. Michael, convince me. Cat girls are not monster girls.
So basically, right, we're looking at a spectrum of different beings, all of which could be monster girls, none of which could be monster girls. But how do we define monster girls to begin with? So you got monsters, and then you have humans on the other side. Think of like a straight line, right? And everything goes like a line graph. Everything goes along that line. And the closer you get to human, the less monster girl you are. The closer to monster, obviously, the more. And so monster girl or cat girls, they're basically next to humans. They're just you can't get away from how close they are to humans in whatever property they're in. I think I was just watching what was it, ReZero earlier? No one gives a shit that Felix is a cat. Like a cat boy. Like literally no one cares. And so basically my whole take is if they're that close to humans, they're basically human until proven otherwise. Kind of the opposite of Steven's take. So how do you respond, Steven?
I agree on the scale. Kitty Bear had put up a very interesting thing that I know you, Michael, were a little on the fence about. We were dealing in percentages at that time, weren't we?
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm fully there with the percentage thing, but I do understand the general idea.
Right. It had to do with the because there was a lot of back and forth, and you were there for part of it. But I think Kitty Bear and I were really doing a lot of wrestling with some of the definitions involved. And what we had been tinkering around with was how viscerally frightening they were, as opposed to how easily they could be cosplayed as a figment in reality.
Yeah, I have no idea how that's going to work though for an actual scale because then you were also saying stuff like, oh, vampires were also monster girls, but then you couldn't explain because they're like mythical, they're immediately, but that just doesn't work for like your scaling system because they could be easily cosplayed. So
Right,
yeah, I
right.
just didn't
That was
like that
kind of
one.
my
And
argument.
I basically go with if they're inhuman enough, like if they have enough inhuman parts, they just are.
Playing on that, I still stand in the position that what I'm defending has to be completely disproven because the basic definitions weren't there. We were talking about animal parts as opposed to mythological creature parts, I think was one of the lines in the sand.
Not for me. That was definitely it for Bear, but it wasn't it for me. No. So at the end of the day, we have ears. Cat girls, they have cat ears, but they're still ears at the end of the day. Cat girls have tails. We have tailbones. It's essentially a one-for-one match with everything a human has. And you're pretty much not changing anything. At the end of the day, they're still just people.
Right. That's I was starting the research that I started to do on the scale of cat girls. It seems that the cat girls that have been argued against as not being monster girls were basically the traditional cosplay cat girls. But my experience has shown that there are quite a few others that need to be included for this to be a
Well, what are
proper
those
argument,
others?
considering
What are
that
those others?
there are let's see. The specific ones that I'm thinking of, and Blaine, I dropped three images actually in your
Yeah,
DM.
elves are close enough.
Um,
The similar thing with cat girls.
Specifically, the Asuka from Outlaw Star, who can go full boat from a regular girl looking like a cat girl who's just basically got ears and a tail. And the other cat girl I'm considering as a strong candidate for a monster girl is the young lady from No Life, No Game, No Life, who can, when her blood gets curdled, get very, very specifically inhuman, where she could change position in midair just by flexing her hand. I still consider these to be fairly terrifying creatures, even though I would be more than happy to cuddle up with either of them on the couch.
Yeah, it's certainly a fair statement, but at the end of the day, you're still talking about them transforming into something inhuman. They're not inherently inhuman. Just off of first glance, you're like, oh, well, yeah, that's kind of weird. They have cat ears, but who cares at the end of the day? But what you're getting at is the transformation aspect of it. That's more like werewolves than anything, which are inherently monstrous. So I think that's where
Right.
your contention is lying. Just because they have like some weird features before they transform doesn't make them not transforming, which is the monstrous part. So I'm still not sure where your contention lies. Like we could go to other examples like vampires or stuff like that, where it's like a lot closer to the line when we're trying to figure out the definition. But I think that
Right.
cat girls not being monster girls is just the most reasonable take in this scenario.
Right. I think that
Real
vampires
quick,
is
Steven.
actually probably the best place to draw a line.
Steven, are you on a headset of some kind, or because your connection shows good, but you're coming through kind of crackly?
I'm speaking into the microphone on my iPad while wearing a set of headphones.
That shouldn't be an issue. Interesting. We'll keep it going. I can understand you, but do know you've got a bit of a crackle to you.
Serranos. Oh, sorry. Go on.
Nothing that'll stop me from understanding you right now. But if it does get worse, I'll let you know. We have to refresh your side of things. We'll see.
Serranos.
Okay.
The appearance is literally what we're basing it off of. That's this whole like classification. Like I'm not sure what you're trying to say by it doesn't make sense. That's literally the whole discussion. Like, what's our alternative, Serranos?
I think the appearance argument breaks down with the vampire, doesn't it?
Well,
Right.
yeah,
I
because
thought
vampires.
that's why I
Yeah,
kept
exactly.
bringing that up.
Yeah, I wasn't there for that whole
Because
thing.
vampires
but
are
yeah,
inherently. Let's start off with an obvious monster girl and kind of work because some of the research that I was doing on the classification of a monster girl, there was a lot of talk about the what was referred to as taxonomy or taxonomy. Yes, the anatomy being a crucial point. How monstrous, either gigantic or visibly monstrous they became, that made them a red class, so to speak, on a scale of red to blue. Red being the worst, blue being the least likely to be monster girl or likely to be human, where vampires seem to fall somewhere in the middle, say green or yellow orange kind of thing.
Okay, so I think I get the idea. It's talking about generalizations. So like, my whole argument is catgirls are generally basically human, but there are a few exceptions. So I think I get that. Um, I'm sorry, I kind of
Well,
lost where you were
centaurs
going
as
with that.
well.
Centaurs being basically, I don't agree with that. No.
No, I'm saying that centaurs can be monstrous centaurs as well as adorable centaurs.
I mean, yeah. Well, anything can be anything. This is a classification for like the spectrum I'm talking about. You're placing individual characters on that spectrum. You're not placing groups. What I was saying was catgirls generally all fall into that side with a few exceptions, which I guess is kind of placing a group there, but obviously there are exceptions to rules. And that's my whole argument here. X distance from here. I'm looking at Serranos' comment. I don't know what that means. Species that are different, very different, but look the same on Earth.
So the difference that he's kind of talking about there is that we differentiate species based on purely their ability to procreate and have fertile offspring. So like horses and donkeys are different species because when we make a mule, the mule can't have children. So talking about something's speciation away from human doesn't necessarily work based purely on the physical attributes. Would be my guess. Would be my guess on what he's trying to say there.
Yeah. Okay, so what he's trying to say is they look alike, but they're not the same. Obviously, I get that.
Right.
We have things
that was some of the things I wanted to mention. Dennis, I apologize. Yes, it's Asuka.
Yeah, you
not
said
Asuka.
Oscar.
Right.
I was thinking
Yes.
of
Yeah.
what's Evangelion.
Clan.
Right. Yeah. No, I was speaking of the brutish cat girl from Outlaw Star. Whatever be her name, due to my brain current farting. But yeah, I think it's important that we differentiate that even though a boy and a cat girl can get together, it's not necessarily possible that they're going to have a hybrid, child in that regard. But I think that's getting more complicated than we need to. My argument is that regardless of how domesticated the general appearance of a cat girl is, they still have claws and teeth. And what is really the definition of monster when we have a few harem shows with dragon girls, where they're adorable and cuddly, but they can transform full boat into lethal
Well, yeah,
dragons.
but they're fairly different in those kind of shows. I'm assuming you're talking about Dragon Maid as one of them?
Yes, and I am not entirely familiar with the property, so I apologize on that.
Oh, it's fine. Yeah, they transform into dragons, but they're dragons transformed into humans, and it's not the other way around. So they're inherently
Right.
already dragons. And then they also have, like, the main one has that huge tail. Yeah, they're inherently monsters, is what I'm trying to say. But sure, they appear human sometimes, and yeah.
Would they be full monsters in that case that just happen to appear human, or would you call them monsters?
They're still girls. They're monsters who are girls. They're inhuman in nature. That's the issue. Then my distinction is that they're inhuman and female, and you know that's basically how I define monster girls.
Right, which is why I brought my two cases up to point, is that, and good heavens, could somebody give me a proper pronunciation of the, of the clan,
Aisha.
Aisha. Aisha is
Aisha.
a monstrous cat woman who most of the time, because of energy consumption, appears humanoid as a base, but she is that terrifying cat woman underneath all of that, especially when under certain lunar circumstances or on certain scales of planets. So my argument still is that we're judging the cat based on our comfortability with kitty cats, and that they are generally not considered to be monsters because we have a domesticated species on Earth.
That's totally fair. But I think, again, I think we can look at stuff in the context of shows, like my example with ReZero and Felix. No one cares that Felix is a cat person except for the main character because it's just normal. But I guess I haven't seen Outlaw Star or whatever show you're talking about, but it seems like this character's like, I don't think they're abnormal, but I think they're definitely distinctly different from humans in that show as well, right?
Right. Well, they're literally from another planet. This is their
Okay,
species on another planet.
then yeah, I think that one itself is definitely defined as one, but I don't think the general all monster girls, all cat girls or monster girls fits, which is why I'm arguing against, because you're trying to say that all of them are monster girls, and then you have to move away with certain examples. I'm saying the opposite. All of them aren't, but then some examples are. So
Right.
Monogatari
Right.
series, yeah, but that's she's being possessed by yokai. I don't think that's a great example.
I want to dive into this human inhuman thing because you said earlier, Michael, that monsters are inhuman.
Yeah.
And I feel like to say that a cat girl isn't inhuman would mean that the cat laying on my bed is some form of human.
Do you walk on all fours, Blaine?
Oh, I don't all the time.
Oh, okay. Then
Sometimes
I don't think you're the same as the cat.
Neither does the cat all the time. It sometimes walks on its hind legs. They're freaking
Okay,
weird.
are you covered in hair from head to tail?
But sometimes a cat girl could be.
But they
like
aren't.
Chitara.
Okay, but Chitara is different. She is one. To be fair, a monster girl.
Okay. Well,
because she's covered in fur all over. Because being covered in fur all over, that's furry stuff that is inherently inhuman. I don't know how many people you see covered in fur head to toe.
I don't know how many humans you see
Serranos,
with ears that come off the top of their head. Or tails. I don't know how many humans you see with tails swinging around.
Yeah, you get the idea. We have tail bones. It's not out of the realm of possibility.
By the way. Serranos brings up a good point.
Head to toe, Serranos, we're covered in hair head to toe.
Head to toe. If you were to look at your body, you would be head to toe covered in hair. Unless you do something to remove it.
There are a couple of races on the planet that that don't. I think some of them are in the Egyptian area that are born like Japanese. They are inherently mostly hairless in comparison to us. I met an Egyptian girl that was entirely hairless, which is really insane to even think about how that even works. But yes, so there are exceptions even in our case of hairless humans or not. And some of us are minimally haired as opposed to grossly haired. And I don't mean that in the ugly gross, but in the obvious gross. This was my issue when we were talking in the Discord, was that there are spectrums within each of these species of girl. You know,
Yeah.
I still think
sorry.
that one could see a mermaid as a monster girl in some cases, but for the most part, I would loop them, by your own definition, more in the cat girl category
How
of
would you say?
non-monster.
Are you serious? How would you say that a mermaid is not a monster girl?
Well, because first of all, I'm defending that the cat girl is. Therefore, I
Yeah, but
would
how would you
consider
use my
mermaids to
definition
be.
as being inhuman as being a monster girl? How would you take that and then be like, oh, but mermaids are therefore human?
See, I think we're dealing with a case of like we're both talking about separate things but using the same terms because we don't have a PowerPoint presentation at hand. When I speak of cat girls, I'm not talking about somebody wearing mittens and booties with little,
But
with little
that's what all
ears and a
cat girls
tail
are
stuck.
in media. That's what they all are. It's like you're trying to say that, oh no, these are the real ones. The ones from Outlaw Star, those are the real ones. But no, because everyone calls Nekopara monster girls, but like they aren't. Like if you look up top 10
Uh,
most popular in media, and that person's not coming up because the top 10 are all going to be these ones that look like Felix from ReZero.
right. Okay. So we are dealing with the general perception of the anime girl.
Yes.
And that would be traditionally a near cosplay, like a bunny girl from the Playboy genre.
Sure.
Where it's mostly or apparently a costume as opposed to them actually having genuine bunny ears with genuine whiskers growing out of their face.
But here's the thing. No, they're real in the show. Like I'm gonna keep using Felix as an example. His ears are real. His cat ears are real. But like, no one's freaked out by him. I mean, like, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and that was something that
whatever.
I
Yeah.
kept bringing up in the Discord was this that the line that's getting drafted in the sand more often than not is the perception of either the main character or the audience that is with the main character. And that seems to be more of a delineation than anything else, which is why I brought up the mermaid, because in most of the West, most of the West does not consider a mermaid to be a monster girl.
Okay, then most of the West is wrong. What is that?
Well, that's not necessarily an argument. That's a line drafted in the sand. Okay, I don't agree with that entirely because I do consider mermaids to be unearthly mythical beings, therefore not human, therefore by most classification monstrous, by the traditional, Webster Dictionary definition of the word monstrous, not human, not necessarily breedable within the species, certainly outside of the realm of the norm. I mean, I'm agreeing with you on this point, but in the process of my agreeing with you, that would include cat girls with mermaids.
No, it literally wouldn't. Before I address that, Kitty Bear, I agree with you. on how they should be grouped up for the most part, except mythological and divine. I don't think you need those two. I think just the other three work. But again, grouping them all into Monster Girl because they all fit in that category. All those 5 fit inside that category, so I'm going to keep using it. But yeah, no, you can't sit there and tell me that humans who have 2 feet and don't breathe underwater are in any way comparable to mermaids, which have like fish tails instead of legs and can breathe underwater. Usually have gills. So I really don't see how under my definition of human and inhuman, you're gonna sit there and define mermaids as being human.
Yeah, see, I'm not disagreeing with you on most of the points. I'm disagreeing with you on the other point, which is relative to the audience, which is who would say yay or nay on Monster Girl or not. This is a debate on behalf of, not between the two of us. We're not talking about something that we are the governors of. We're
No,
merely
I
the
am the governor of
voices
Monster
debating
Girls.
it.
I am the governor. That is my whole job. It's between you and me. I don't know if you think you're representing the normies out there, but I am the governor who decides all this.
Okay, so you would be the prosecuting attorney for the state.
If the state ran by my own definition of laws, yeah. Like, people don't need to view mermaids as being monsters for them to be monsters. I don't see how that's a issue. Like, people can view centaurs as being basically human with how they act. That doesn't mean like their lower halves aren't horses.
I still
Okay.
keep going
Okay.
back to the inhuman thing. It like inhuman, not human, meaning like something that is not a human thing. Having ears and a tail that stick up off your head and come out your butt are not human. They are by definition inhuman. I still don't have a good reason why cat girls should not be
But they
considered
are.
inhuman and put into the monster girl category.
You literally have two aspects that are slightly different. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, God, this is. I shouldn't word it this way. Look.
Do it. Word it
God
that
damn
way.
it. Look, as a white individual, okay, I'm not gonna say
All right, fine.
Greeks.
Don't get me kicked off the internet. Whatever you
I'm not
do.
gonna say the Greeks are inhuman because they aren't. I don't know. Basically, what I'm trying to say is like, basically, just because people don't look like everywhere. I'm fumbling the bag here.
Well, let's backpedal this a little bit. Let's backpedal this a little
Like humans
bit.
all look different, so why does it matter the slight differences? Like we already don't care about the slight differences between white people and black people. Why do I mean some people do?
Have you seen a
Some people
cat's
do.
ear?
Yeah.
It looks nothing like a human's ear. It's not
Does it
positioned
need
in the
to?
same place. Nothing about it is the same. And if you stick that cat's ear in the general cat ear location on a human, it's why we get the funny memes with like the cat girl with the ears up here and then she's wearing headphones. And you're like, where are her ears really? Like, where? Yes, we have tailbones, but our tailbones are just that. They're a couple bones after your asshole. Or before your asshole, wherever the hell you're looking.
Where a tail could
We
be.
don't have
Right,
a
at the
full
bottom of your pelvis.
prehensile controllable tail.
But we
They're
could have.
inhuman things.
We could.
They're not human.
Yes, but we don't. And as far as tails are concerned, a mermaid is closer to a cat girl than it is to a human being, or a cat girl is closer to a mermaid than it is to a human being. But that's neither here nor there. Let's backpedal this. What other animal girl, Michael, would you consider to be closer to a cat girl than to a monster girl? Let's start there, because I think this cat thing is what's really messing all of this up.
God, that's a hard, like a softball I wasn't prepared for. I guess dogs.
Well, like cowgirls,
yeah.
or mouse girls, or fox girls.
Definitely
Because
foxes. I think those are, without their powers, they're way more human than not. But again, they have powers, so it's a little bit iffy on them. My perception of cowgirls and mouse is a little warped for one reason or another, so can't really talk about them being close to human. God,
right,
yeah,
because
no,
their bosom is basically duplicated because of the anatomy of a real
that's
cow.
not what I think of. The issue is that's I'm not thinking of the same thing you are when I say that. But we all think of the same thing when we say cowgirls. We think of the stupid cosplays, you word it, looking things, which again aren't monstrous. They aren't monsters, so there's really not much else to say on that front. I guess if you want to talk about vampires, we can now. I think if they don't,
Well,
yeah, go on.
I think bringing up the vampire in this is kind of awkward, because they are, by global definition, monstrous creatures. And since we're not dealing with anatomical differences anymore, because there is a sort of zealotry on your side that I can't seem to work around, I don't think vampires is going to be something used as a device to kind of break up the definition. Um, because we're not talking about a fear factor here. It doesn't matter how
No,
cuddly
we're not. We're talking
the
about,
creature is. Go ahead.
yes, it doesn't matter how cuddly they are because that's not like a workable scale. We're talking about whether they're human or not. And when we're talking about whether they're human or not, we should be able to compare them to humans. So if we're comparing something like fox girls to humans, that for the most part, you imagine a fox girl, they just have fox ears and maybe multiple tails. That's pretty close to a cat girl. Not sure.
Right. And yet, there are hundreds of examples. I mean, Naruto is a monster as far as the whole show is concerned. He's constantly working against this idea that any second he could destroy the entire realm just by losing control of his animal nature. So what are we
Is
really
it his
talking
animal
about
nature or
here?
the thing inside him's animal nature? Because
Well,
in that show, he's
what
more of a
is the
vessel.
difference at that point?
Well, the difference is that his
I
animal nature
get
has
what you're
its own
talking
soul
about.
and it's like its own thing.
Right, but if we're drafting a line where Catgirl somehow winds up on the more human side merely because a lot of girls dress up as Catgirls,
That's
then
not my
we don't even
reason
really have
at
an
all.
argument.
That's not my reason though. They
Um,
don't. It's not because a lot of girls dress up as them. It's because cat ears, like again, ears are the same no matter how they look. Like I'm not sure how else to word this. Ear, like I'm not gonna be like, you have long nails, so you're no longer human. No, it's, yo, you have ears. They're just slightly different than mine. I don't care. Or your earlobes are a different size. It's all this. Everyone has slight differences than everyone else, and I think having cat ears is just one of those at this point, at least in most shows.
hmm. So the hard anatomy of a cat girl actually having feline bone structure in their fingertips isn't something that separates them from being human.
Well, which ones have that? Because you're bringing up that one example,
Well,
but I'm not thinking of any
I
like
mean,
normal or different examples where they actually have claws. Can you blame any with
I
claws?
know of dozens of examples. The problem is that there are thousands of examples in the landscape of just anime alone. without even bringing in Thundercats or any of those mythological creatures that are half and half that. I think Conan has at least 3 species of Catwoman in the lore of Conan the Barbarian. So when I think of a cat girl, regardless of the actual anatomy in the show, she does have cat claws on her hands and her feet. Her ears are not on the sides of her head, but closer to the top of her head, which means that her brain structure and the neural link between the ear and the brain is different. I mean, just because of the structure of her skull. I mean, we are talking anime here, so we're talking anime anatomy here. So,
Yeah,
people
so that
grow
all goes out
mouths
the
in the
window,
center of
kind
their
of.
body sometimes.
No,
Don't
I
get
think that I think I found it. So basically, you think they have claws inherently. I don't think they have claws inherently. I'm thinking of the most watered down version that is basically prominent everywhere. So I can't in good faith say they have claws inherently. And if they did, then yeah, they're definitely over that line for me, but I don't think most do.
Okay, so we're currently standing at a separation that there is a subspecies within the catgirl realm where if they are anatomically displayed as being more cat-like, they would therefore be inhuman, therefore monster. But you're saying that the generic perception in the anime audience is that most cat girls could more than likely just have mittens on. But they don't
Um,
appear to have actual anatomy in their cute little cat paws.
my issue is not even the anatomy. It's just that if you don't have claws, which humans do not have, you're not a monster. Like claws are the easiest thing to think of when you think of like a cat, because cats obviously have claws. Humans don't have claws. But when I think of a cat girl, I'm not thinking of claws. Like I always come back to Felix. Felix doesn't have them. Necropara, can't think of a single one that does. I have a couple other examples I wrote down. Again, I'm just trying to think of examples where they have claws. Blair from Soul Eater, like you can't tell me that she's literally a cat that just looks like a human. You can't tell me that she looks like a monster.
Yeah, my problem comes in with this because like, okay, I don't know if either of you are familiar. I'm sure the chat will chime in. There's a book that a Western author wrote called Understanding Comic Books, and he brings up Inuyasha as an example of what cartoon language can do. Inuyasha's sword, for the most part, is just a rusted samurai sword that's got tattered grips on the handle and such. But when he possesses it in his hand, there you go, there's the book. It looks like the ferocious sword that we're all familiar with because it's in his hands. So in the language of anime, the transformation occurs like we all know that all of those little comic, cartoonish sequences in Full Metal Alchemist, those characters actually look like they're proper normal models, but they're drawn cartoonishly because we're seeing how they're acting as opposed to seeing what they photographically should look like. So when it comes to catgirl anatomy, even specifically in the case you just brought up, I think that there is a standard audience model where we see her soul, and that is not necessarily lethal all the time. But when she displays her true self as a weapon, that anatomy can visibly change on screen at the moment of action. And I've definitely seen that happen in multiple occasions, and sometimes anatomically as part of the model in specific properties of anime. So once again, I My defensive position is more chipping at your definition and trying to move the goalpost to accommodate um, at least 50% of the spectrum of cat girls and not leave only 5% monster. I think that it's not a clear-cut case. I do think that a lot more of the cat girls that we're talking about are actually monsters because of anatomical reasons alone. But that I agree, there are some anime cat girls that are more human, that the ears are more of a visible metaphor than an actual part of the character's anatomy. So that's what I'm trying to chip at here.
So you're saying because their anatomy in real life would be different, like just physically different than it is in the show, it's entirely what is it? Is they're actually a monster because in real life they would be a monster.
Right, right. Because they are cat girls, because they do have anatomical differences like taller heels moving up into their calf, um, four fingers or
Do
three
they have that
fingers
in
with a
most shows?
toe.
Are we?
Well,
No, they don't.
most shows, that's really what we're trying to benchmark here is what is the definition of most shows? You seem to think, and I might agree with you, that because I haven't watched as much anime as I think modern audiences have. In my experience, most of the cat girls are either part of the spiritual language and not necessarily an anatomical language of the show. But there are cat girls in shows that do have anatomical differences that make them not human. That's those two specific examples I brought up were perfect examples. They are adorable, but they are covered with fur. They are girls, but they are all also monstrous because when they display their weaponry, they are ferocious, terrifying creatures.
Yeah, I think you're really getting hung up on like action and when they're performing actions. Like when we see them moving around, they're different, or when they're fighting, because you're talking about a lot of shows where they're fighting. When they're fighting, they're doing ferocious or you're scared of them kind of things. So are you just saying their anatomy and because they're scary, that's what defines them as
Or
monster
that
girls?
they have the potential to be. Um, there's the whole thing of the cornered mouse that, a mouse, you can hold it in your hand, but if you piss it off, it can chomp your whole finger off if it wants to. I mean, certain rat species can actually chew through steel. I mean, that's recorded fact. Um, my thing is that you continue to talk about anatomical features in a real sense, like take them out of the animation and place them in photographic reality, like some of these translations from Pokemon to full CG Pokemon. They're horrible looking. They're adorable in the show, but if you were to see a real Bulbasaur, you'd be terrified. You know, Pikachu might be the same way. Those are certainly monsters, and in some shows they refer to them as monsters.
But
What, Digimonsters?
here's the issue with Pokemon and Digimon and comparing them to Catgirls is that if they were to be translated into Catgirls, they would literally have like a Bulbasaur, for example, would have like I can't even think they'd have like what no ears and a stubby little green tail, and nothing else would be different from a human if they were translated the same way Catgirls are translated. So I'm not sure how we're talking about these types of monsters and
Well,
saying we consider
I
them
think we're still
monstrous, but
kicking it around.
we're kicking it
I
around,
think
but
we're
you're
still
kicking it
kicking it
around into
around.
stuff that doesn't relate to it. Like that, I mean, they tangentially relate because I guess they're not human, but like other than that, they're very different.
The way I'm approaching this intellectually is like building boundaries by placing, like you said, tangential properties on the outside and trying to figure out if that's as far as we can go. We can't go into that territory because it's not part of the discussion. So I'm bringing
Well, any
up these
further and
tangential
they're
things.
undeniably like any further than what we're already saying, and they're undeniably monstrous in nature.
Right.
But we're trying to
Right.
pinpoint where's the line. And my argument is that they're before the line, they're before the cutoff, and you're saying they're past it, and I can't seem to agree that because you're saying most of them have claws. Like Blaine, you're gonna have to step in. Do most of them have claws?
So I think that depends, and I think that does boil down to like what the argument has finally sort of become. But I went ahead and I made a I have a couple things for you. Okay, so this is a cat girl and a monster girl. So this would be a monster girl according to Michael. This
Definitely.
is Uzaki from Killing Bites. She
Can you
has
watch that
claws,
show?
she's got tail, she has cat ears, she's got abs, so he's really into it. And you would say that Cat Planet Cuties is not Monster Girl. That's your you stop at ears and a tail.
I'm
stop
sorry,
laughing. This is serious business here.
They have two sets of
You
ears.
stop
That's
at
a
ears and a
perfect
tail.
example.
And you stop thinking that that's now just a cat girl who's basically human, whereas like cat girl with more monstrous, like as soon as you get one more like claws, I think that's what you said. If you add claws, you suddenly get to say monster girl because it's got that one extra bit that pushes it. You're mixing yellow and blue, and it just became a little bit more green, and that's where your line is. I think that's
Yes, this is very clearly like a great example of Monster Girl. Yeah.
Right. And this, because of the human ears, is definitely more of a cosplay than a cat girl, even. I'm just saying that there's a drafting line between cosplay cat girl.
Dude, that's what I was saying. That's crazy.
That she has two sets of ears in that.
How could you see the ears? Serrano's picked it out too. How could you see the ears?
Dude, we were looking up. I don't know why you were looking at the down.
Because I'm a grown
other
person.
One that pops in on the side here,
that.
you know? Like, oh, whoa, what's she doing there? Hey.
What else?
Those were two
okay,
great
the chat's
examples. That's
arguing over
exactly the
ReZero.
line I'm talking about.
Yeah. And I think I think that's my argument remains that as soon as it becomes I'll even say two items of inhumanity, and you get monster, right? And I think by that definition, those crazy people who are like they do like all the demon and the dragon stuff, where they go and they do the everything like to the nines, right? So they look like a dragon. I would put them in a monstrous category. But keep go ahead and fight. The stream is yours for a little bit. I have got to use the bathrooms.
Blaine, before you go,
what?
Two items. Are you going to say a centaur is human because it's one item is half its body is different?
Well, because the half of the body is going to be legs and tail and butt and like there's a lot of parts that are getting added there when you say half the body. Like, sure, you can say lower half as one item, but there's a lot of pieces that are getting added. So are ears going to be two items then? What?
Are ears going to be two
let
items?
Blaine Pat.
No, ears and tails.
Let Blaine go for a second. Let Blaine
ears
go
and
for a
tails would be
second,
two
and he'll
items
be
to
right
me. But
back.
you guys can keep fighting over this, all right?
Because potty break.
Honestly, I want to pick
required
apart the
human
chat
anatomy.
a little bit. I'm looking at this
Go
chat
ahead,
and I'm
man.
ready to fight. Who was saying?
I haven't even been looking.
Who's bringing up
Go.
ReZero? Paruchin. You had to bring up Garfield. I need to look him up. What's he look like again?
Who? The Western Garfield?
No, Garfield. Isn't he literally human? Isn't that his thing? Or am I wrong? Doesn't he transform?
That
or
I don't
something?
know.
He's a cat. He doesn't look like a cat. Does he transform? Because if he doesn't actually look the part. Same with Rem and Ram.
See, I think that there's what we need to distinguish the difference between is girl, cat, or cat girl. Cat girl would suggest that it's mostly cat, like the example that that Blaine showed, and then the other one is a girl with cat features, which is
okay,
the second
but
example.
we don't make the distinction. No one makes the distinction anywhere else. We're making that distinction, but if no one else actually makes that distinction, like, I really don't see the point in making the distinction. Like, you're trying to make a distinction so you win the argument, is what you're trying to do. Because if we did make that distinction, I would fully agree with you, honestly. But we can't make that distinction because that distinction doesn't actually exist.
Right. I think I am defending cat girls. The reason why I think a distinction should be made is because some of the girls we're discussing are not cat girls.
But they are, and that's the issue. They're treated as such by literally everyone.
Treated as such. Well, I've watched quite a few documentaries on YouTube on the subject, and they can't seem to come up with a decision either, and it always boils down to one gentleman or one person's opinion on the subject.
Here's the issue: they're cowards. I don't know what to tell you. These people, they don't know what they're talking about. They're cowards.
I agree, and I'm feeling braver by the second arguing with you because you definitely have a very strong position on the subject, and with everything you're talking about. But what I'm doing is defending your points from my defense. We're dealing with anatomy. We're dealing with inhuman qualities. We're dealing with transformations, which would include werewolves and werecats and werelions and
things in general.
Even were-dragons. Right, I agree with
dragons,
you.
It's the other way around, but yeah, I agree.
So I think the problem with cat girls is that there has been a level of acceptance of an extremely broad spectrum of people with cat ears, and I think that's kind of what I'm trying to delineate a defense for. But go for the chat, man. Go for it, because I'm not as familiar with most of the people in the chat. You are. You more know the people in the chat better than I do.
Paruchin, there's a reason why you got Baka there, and I think we need to have a talk. Look, Garfield, Rem, and Ram, they all transform to become monsters. Otherwise, they're literally no different than humans in that world. Humans have magic. They have magic. Everyone's on equal footing until they transform. Same with Garfield. Same with Rem. Same with Ram. I can't think of other options. I can't think of anyone else. Like, they literally just grow a horn, and then they're slightly different. Like, they get a power up.
Yeah,
that's their whole transformation.
Yeah, I think we could exclude charms, kind of like McGonagall in the Harry Potter universe, where she can transform into a cat, and in an anime universe, she would be able to transform into a werecat of sorts by using her charms, but she's primarily a witch with magic.
No, Paruchin, they are. I just think it's to a much lesser extent. I think you're closer to one end than the other because you're literally picking up one article of you're picking up like minute stuff with those guys when they transform. Like, again, what is it? I think Ram lost her horn, but Rem literally gains a horn. That's all.
Don't be talking. Refamiliarize me. Go
So
ahead.
basically Rem is an Oni, right? So she's a demon. Um,
Uh-huh.
and she
This is from
has
what show?
ReZero. This is from ReZero.
Okay.
So basically, she's a demon, and she's a twin. So she has one horn, her sister has another horn, right? And when they transform, they grow their horn, right? Otherwise, they don't have it any other time. And so they literally just look human without the horn. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
Blaine, I
there's a
started going for throats.
I'm back.
there's
I'm
a
back. I
No,
was following along, but I started yelling at chat.
Serranos, they are inhuman. That's the thing. They literally just are inhuman, but they're still on the human side of the spectrum. I mean, they're not literally on the human side of the spectrum, the same as cat girls, I'm arguing, but they're very close. They're over the line. They're just very close to the line.
there was a show that I had recently watched, and forgive my pronunciation, but Kimono Jihen.
Kimono
And
Jihen.
the monsters, the monsters in that show primarily appear human. That is how they're able to survive in the realm of the earth, by disguising themselves or not revealing themselves. But they have unusual smells or unusual facial expressions or slightly exaggerated features.
Are we talking about
But
Parasite?
when they use their uh, no,
No,
it
Kimono
Blaine.
Jihen. Here, I'll pull some up. I freaking love this show. It's literally like a tanuki that runs a sort of detective type agency, and little demi monsters that work with him. It is
Well,
it
there's
is a
also the
blast.
fox woman in the police force. It's absolutely terrifying.
Yeah,
But and the foxes in that show are just oof. They can get
I'm gonna gamble on
scary.
Google search being okay.
Oh God! Why did kids pop up, Blaine? No.
These are them. These are the little kids that are in the like this kid's like a zombie type monster. He's a Kabane.
Yeah, when he goes full power,
This
he can
one's
be disintegrated down to his bones, and he can still regenerate. It's just horribly monstrous. But yeah, go
this
ahead.
one's mom is a spider.
Later, E
This
class.
one's a Yuri, no, a ice queen or whatever. Alrighty, class. See
Yeah.
you later. Safari Friends, little different because I think in Safari Friends they're supposed to just be animals, but they're representing them as anime girls. So that a little bit different argument, I think, if we want to talk about Kimono. Is it just called Kimono Friends? I think it's just called
Yeah, I
Kimono
think it
Friends.
is. Yeah.
But yeah, no, this is like this entire troop here are all monsters.
Yes.
But I think those fall
And there's
into
even
the
a vampire in that
argument.
group. Well, the reason why I bring up the show is because of that transformation line that we're talking about the appearance of anatomy in action as opposed to their general appearance to their surrounding world. And yet, just underneath the surface of their appearance, they are monsters without a doubt. I mean, I don't want to bring up another show and cloud the issue, but those
in
are
that show,
monsters.
but again, cat girls, are they
Well,
really changing? Are they transforming? Are they different underneath the surface of their skin? I don't think they are. I think they just have slightly different features. Like if we're talking about Russians and Greeks, like again, like they're just slightly different. They're not that different.
I see I see a reference to the ship of Theseus, and I'm not sure everybody knows the philosophy of that debate of if we take a ship and we one by one replace every single board, is it the same ship? You can do this with anything.
yeah,
Is the
I'm
deck
familiar
the
with
same
that
as the
one.
deck if you replaced every board on it, right? So if I take, we've agreed that the Killing Bites lady with the claws and ears and tail is a monster girl.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to cut off her ears and tail and her arms, would she be a paraplegic monster girl or a paraplegic human?
I still think a monster.
But there's no more monster parts.
Okay. Dude, we have photos of them before they were horribly maimed.
Ooh, this is getting deep. Steven, what say you? If I cut out all the monster,
Well,
are they still a monster
I'm
girl?
still in the camp of defending the actual cat girls as opposed to the poser cat girls, regardless of perception.
Yeah, but you can't
they're
separate the two in this discussion. You
well,
can't.
but you're drafting a tremendous umbrella over hundreds of characters.
Because
And
they're all
I think
considered.
that's the
We
argument.
use the same term for all of them. Look, you can separate monster girls into beast girls, monster girls, demon girls. You can't separate cat girls into real cat girls and fake cat girls unless you make a line using monster girls,
Well,
where the real ones are
my
over
art.
the line and the
That
fake
is
ones
what
are
I
on the
am
other
debating
side.
here.
Yes, well, we agree on
Let's
that.
try
then.
this.
The fake ones are on
Let's
one side and the
try
real ones are on
this.
the other side, and a lot of them are on the fake side.
Elves and humans only have a single piece of anatomy that
Oh no,
draws a line between the two,
we're talking about Tolkien
and that is
stuff.
the
No, I
anatomy of
think
their
almost
ears.
all races are basically human in Tolkien.
And yet they don't think so.
Okay, racism.
Granted. But within cat girls, there are, and I agree with you on this, there are girls that just have cat ears and a tail, but for the most part, and I think in the language of the show, kind of like when a character turns around and they put on the cat face because they're being like a cat, that they become a cat girl for a second in the show, but they are not actually a cat girl. The actual cat girls that I'm talking about are the ones that present cat features, have cat anatomy, and act like cats. They eat fish.
So yeah,
they
well, if you're
prefer
looking at
certain
all those,
dishes.
if you're talking about very specific things that would put them over that line, but
Well, we have
in
to be the
general,
specific because of the
you have
broadness
to.
of the
Look, you're
umbrella.
trying to be that specific, but you're trying to take the umbrella and make it all about like this tiny portion of the umbrella, one flap, when you can't do that. You're trying to shorten it to where it's all over the line, where you can't make the umbrella smaller so that just the ones you want fit in it. It needs to be big so that the entire umbrella is what you're covering. Oh no. It's weird.
Well, I'm going to need some defense on this. Chat, Blaine, is the umbrella really that small or that broad? Am I exaggerating the
E-Class came
issue?
back just to tell me his brother is based. So
Oh, that if cat girls are, that's a hard
That's
no.
a
He
hard
says.
no for him. That's funny.
your sister married a good man, E-Class. Or maybe it's I'm not gonna assume that your brother's gay, but like
That's
a
funny.
good in-law.
And Parochin Baka agrees that cat girls are a wide spectrum. If we look at the near 50 years of anime cat girls, there are aliens that are present to human beings as cat-like, and there are human girls that demonically represent occasionally
E-Class.
as full-blown cats. What are we really talking about here? And
We're talking about
don't get me wrong,
everything.
Michael. You got some very strong points. I'm trying to
My
see
points are
if
generalized
what
because we're
I
talking about
consider.
everything.
I don't think your points are that generalized.
They kind of are, because a lot of them you're trying to ignore a majority of catgirls. And I'm saying general things because I'm not ignoring them. You just think they're specific because you're ignoring. This is getting hard. I don't know.
That's what I want. I need it to get hard.
They literally aren't
knew this
charging
kind of
because they're
coming
just
in.
cosplaying. You can't. There's a girl who sits on top of a horse and covers the horse's head a centaur. Paru.
Don't talk to the girl about that.
That's funny.
All right.
I have
I
have a very interesting take on what centaurs actually are in the first place, but that's a whole other deal.
I've got a pretty interesting take on centaurs. Why didn't you lead with that? That would have been a great opening to everything.
Yeah, that would have been the best line you could have started with.
All right, I'm gonna open this up because I
Gemini, they just are.
Oops, wrong one. I want this one. Fill a bit more.
Gotta.
Let me know. Let me know if this is what we're seeing here. So.
God, we're doing the SpongeBob bit. We're not talking about this or this, but this.
Over here, we've got girls. And we have Monster Girl. Monster Girl. All right. And we have a line. Boop.
Yeah, Parujin, that's because cat girls are just human. That's the reason why a girl who dresses up as a cat girl looks like a cat girl, because they're human.
Oops. Hold on.
You're on that line. You're just not there yet. You're getting there.
So
hold on.
A girl that dresses up as a mermaid is still just a girl?
But I don't know how you're dressing up as a mermaid. You're getting a fishtail and all that. I don't know.
Well, yeah,
You've
by
never seen the
putting
fishtail?
on yeah, I mean, I've seen them. They sell swimwear that makes you look like a mermaid. It's a real thing.
Yeah, but you're not a mermaid at that point.
Well, traditionally in the West, there are mermaids that have two legs and not a single leg. The Starbucks motif is based on
agreed,
a mythological mermaid. I'm just saying that there are the delineation that has been made for most monster girls hasn't been scrutinized for cat girls. I don't think I'm making an irrational argument here.
Blaine, that's like in the middle for me.
This is in the middle. We decided
that's
earlier
like
that this
middle
was
to
monster.
The right. No. Here's the thing, though.
Say
if you
when.
put a line, like I don't know where to say, like 5/6 of the. Oh, stop. Go back like 3 clicks. Yeah, right there.
Okay.
But look. My line for monster girls are very close to girls. Like maybe a little bit more than halfway from that picture to girls is where I'd put the line for monster girls.
So here.
Yeah.
This is
right
where girls become a monster.
Yes, become monster girls. That's the line.
Okay.
It's not right down the middle because, I'm not going to cut off the line at centaurs.
And you call this
basically
cat girl, because we're talking specifically about the cat tributes.
Right.
So this would be cat girl.
That's literally cat ears and a tail.
Awesome.
And then as soon as it crosses this line, you allow it to be monster.
Yes.
Right.
Monster. Okay.
That's for everything.
I spelled monster wrong.
Right. That's for all monster girls of all anatomies, of all partialities.
If we're talking about cat girls, they literally are basically secluded in that one section, except for obviously the one photo we have on screen.
Okay.
And all others that appear like them.
Kitty Bear, I agree with you, but I'm generalizing here. I agree with you on Animal Girl, but I'm generalizing.
Right.
Now,
Well, if we get into animal girls, then we can start talking about centaurs again because they're animal girls.
We can
I'm
still
sorry.
talk about centaurs. They're still monsters.
I would still call this right here a cat girl.
It is.
Right.
Okay. So cat girl's not
So we're
limited
already
to this little bit
right.
here.
Yeah,
Right.
it's not. There are exceptions to all rules.
But
Well, and yeah, see,
I have to E except before C, except for all the examples. The opposite.
okay. Okay.
well, then let me ask you this then, Michael. Is there a monster girl that fits into the near girl category for you?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, have either of you seen Ari Ferretta? I know Blaine has. So that was. Have you seen Ari Ferretta? Commonplace the World's
I'm not
Strongest.
familiar
Steven?
off. I'm
I'm
not
saying,
familiar off
girl.
the top of my head.
There's a vampire girl in that show, and she is basically human. Her the caveats are she lives a long life and she drinks blood, but she isn't undead. So I don't know what you want me to say. I think she's basically human. She can walk around the sun. She's not undead. It's hard for me to say that she's not human. I think she fits in that you know, before the line.
Near girl category.
Yeah.
Okay, so there
Okay.
are even
So
spectrums
I
within
think-
spectrums.
Serranos, you don't get to insult my show, dude. Come on.
what do you think this is? Hippy dippy? We don't respect anything in this debate world. All right, Steven, I think I've got a way to articulate or draw out your side of the argument. So first you have we'll say cat before anything I type here. So cat ears would sort of be from here all the way across would be a trait that is held by everything on this line. And then maybe tail would be also held by everything on this line. And then we have claws, which put you closer to the monster. Like they start a little bit farther in. And then we have like the feet, like the weird feet. You know how cats have weird feet? Like that puts you a little bit farther into like the monster. And so you just sort of, as I think what Steven's saying is, as you move across this gradient here, we just are adding more and more of the cat-like attributes until the point at which it becomes the full entirety. But the entire time, this entire gradient is monster girl, because they're all in human parts. Is that
they're not.
Your side of the argument?
I would say that is my side of the argument. That the real delineation between the two is anatomical. That the more non-human features, more cat features, more animal girl features, actually functioning. Like those are really her ears. Those are really her claws. That is really her fur. Those are really her slit eyes. That moves it closer and closer to becoming a monster girl. And what Michael appears to be saying is that for the most part, everybody sees them as just having mittens and ears and booties that make them into cat girls, and that's that.
No, I mean, look, I recognize that the line thing you did as well. I just think that ears and a tail don't immediately make it a monster girl, and the claws and feet thing, they're over past that line.
Oh yeah, okay.
I would even put claws on the line.
I can be okay with that. Like if you were like claws, okay, blah blah blah, and then like feet.
Yeah, because that's where I was drawing my issues with that when you were drawing it. But
the thing
basically,
we're
my
focusing
entire
on
thing
here
is ears and a tail. They're
monster starts here.
Yes.
Whereas the argument is inhuman things start here.
No, they don't.
Point
What
to
do you
me
mean
one
inhuman
human who
things
was
start
born
there?
with ears that look like cat ears. Find one. You have the internet before you. Find me one human born with an
They're probably in
ear
China.
that
They're
looks
probably in
like a
China.
goddamn cat ear.
Call the
Find me
Chinese
one human with a
crispers.
prehensile mobile tail that isn't just a little little
Call
bean
China. They
coming
got
out of
some
their
crispers
ass
in
that
there.
looks like it should just be cut off when they were born.
Well, China got some crispers in there, so they probably got a couple
So
of them.
China can mix DNA, but once we mix DNA, then we're getting into the catgirl territory, and it's a monster now. We mix DNA, and it's a monster.
Yeah, agreed.
Slight aside, I was on the bus today, and looking across the bus, some guy looked up from his phone, and he had full blown, the craziest looking demon contact lenses in, and I got genuinely freaked out. Like, it was so frightening because it was like out of nowhere. He like looked up at me, and I was like, "Holy shit, man!" It's, bald head, grayish skin. I was like, "What am I looking at here?" But
Jeez.
yeah, I have never seen somebody
dragonsons
without looped ears that had pyramidal, furry, anatomically functional dog, cat, mouse, or fox ears on top of their head. That is an inhuman feature, and the brain structure would have to be relatively different to even support those ears. So this is an anatomy argument. I mean, I respect your...
It's boiling down
Go
to
ahead.
Our ears are different looking ears in human.
Well, they are. I mean, by cold definition, they are.
They are.
But
is a different looking leg in human? Is someone with a leg defect in human?
Well, we're not talking about a leg defect.
No,
if it's a cat girl.
They literally aren't playing. Get out of here.
I'll be like, damn, boy, you got an inhuman leg. Kind of crazy
If
monster,
somebody's leg...
You a monster boy now.
You're a monster.
If somebody's leg bent completely different, that thalidomide babies, just to bring in some actual real historical
ostrich knees, and we call him a monster because he's got ostrich ass knees that bend the wrong way.
Right. And historically, the elephant man was called a monster. He had to argue the point philosophically to prove that he wasn't. And yet most of society saw the elephant man as a monster, merely because of anatomical differences that weren't relative to the species. So I look,
but even
Michael,
so, I have yet to see a defect that puts an ear up here with big pointiness and like the big cavernous and look it up. I told you, you've got the internet.
Did you look it up?
Goodness, I'm not the one trying to argue that case.
No, you look it up.
I've been looking plenty.
By the way, gentlemen, this has been absolutely fantastic so far. I don't know how much longer Blaine has the steam for. I'm totally up for as long as you want to go. But I wanted to re-utter that, your position, Michael, is very firm. You've made some solid points, and I respect your position. I'm merely trying to include within the structure of your position that most of what I think of as a cat girl are monster girls by your own classification structure, because of anatomical differences, because of alternate powers and inhuman abilities. Cat girls can leap higher
inhuman
than
abilities,
normal
alternate powers. Those are definitely inhuman things. But I still think going into the anatomy is a step too far. Because again, if we look at mermaids, that you're just like, oh, you literally can't mix amphibians and mammals. It's not a thing you can do. So what are we gonna do there? Yeah, that is a mermaid, but that's literally impossible. So I don't know if we can then go and say no. It's just like you can't imagine. Like, we're talking about literal anatomical impossibilities, so we have to go by appearance, not by what would literally happen. Do they
I don't
appear
think
human
I've
or not?
ever seen, you know, except maybe on the Inquirer or the Star, an actual bat person or an cat person. Granted, there are Chewbacca-looking, werewolf-looking people that have popped up in history, but they too were
When
considered
did I say I have the
monstrous.
documents? Sorry, I'm still reading chat. Gemini,
You can't let
Gemini.
chat distract you. That's rule number one. He's
Blaine,
making a
you always get
reference to when you
distracted.
told
Get
me
out
to
of here.
Google it.
Chat is an art form. Being able to use your chat is a true art form, and I still have yet to see a general plan of attack on how to manage your. We'll bring in a secondary producer to manage the chat, and then the producer brings it up to the host, and so there's all sorts of play the chat. And I've been chat, yelling at the host, going, "Hey, we got this idea." But
It's always tough.
I don't know about the audience. I don't know about. I'm still not convinced that the cat girls that I'm talking about don't
I'm glad
at least
you
50%.
asked. All right, let's take a look. Let's see where we're at.
Okay, guys, you gotta
pulled up-
meme pick me. You gotta do it.
I pulled up a poll, right? And based on these, we got weird numbers in the chat. Like we got like a 43%, a 29%, and another 29%. So are cat girls monster girls? 29% say yes, they are. 29% say no way. And 43% say I'm more confused now than before.
Good. I know you're in that.
Yes,
I know you're in that block, Paru. I see that.
Victory.
So this was productive, maybe.
I think it was,
You
because I
guys
think
and
the
monsters?
problem is this.
Sorry, I cut you
I
off.
think
Go
that
on.
the issue. No, I hard to tell sometimes, but there definitely is a little bit of lag between the audio tracks. But I think that the issue is that cat girls have been with us in associations over the decades, and I do mean decades. I mean, we've had cat girls in animation and animated features since the beginnings of Disney, since the beginnings of mythology. I mean, they're all over the place, come in all different forms. There are spiritual cat girls, there are anatomical cat girls, there are, cosplayed cat girls. I mean, we've had even the Man universe. Does Catwoman drink milk because she's more cat-like or not? Does
If you
she
go
have
by the movie,
super
yes.
because she gained some mutation? There's a spectrum even in specific characters, depending upon what universe you're in. So I don't think arguing from a bench when I say that there is a spectrum that needs to be delineated. I agree with you that not all cat girls are monster girls, but I disagree that they are all not monster girls.
And I think they start off as not monster girls because, again, I'm not looking at anatomy. I'm not looking at literal anatomy, like their brains are changing because of how they look. I'm just talking about how they look when I'm speaking about anatomy. And they physically, 99% is the same, but that 1% just doesn't change it for me.
Right. Which is why I
If we have
kept
demi-humans
in the
in
chat
real
that
life,
we did, which is still online, that vampires are anatomically, for the most part, appear as humanoid, which is more the word that you should be using as opposed to human. We are human. Cat girls are humanoid. I agree with you on that. For the most part, they are. But vampires are considered monsters because historical mentioned. And cat girls are not
Well, they're also
considered
like,
monsters for the same reason. They are mostly cuddly creatures that are trustworthy.
I would say vampires are monsters because they're undead.
Oh no, I think Steven, we're losing you more and more.
He is, yeah.
Which is making it a little tough. We had what was the last bit that you heard, Michael?
Something about vampires being dead. I think. I'm not really sure.
Okay.
Say something?
I do drop.
You
All we
literally
heard
said,
was,
I do drop, and then we didn't hear anything else after that.
I'm out for chat again. Aliens are monster girls because they're not from Earth. They can look the same as us. They're aliens.
Now.
Oh, okay, you're quiet right now. Okay, I thought you were. Can't hear properly. Yeah, me neither. All right,
It's
so
probably because my is heating up.
Oh no, the heat of the pad. Well, maybe you can boil some tea on it. That might be nice.
Yeah.
I do drop fat stacks at the club. Okay. Let's see where was I about to go? I want to dive into one corner that I brought up.
When I finish a statement, I just go completely silent.
You're going silent whether you want to or not.
It's even worse now. Can you try one more time?
Weird. I'm getting weird.
You in a thunderstorm?
Okay.
Oh no. Yeah, because it's sort of given us that weird, like suddenly it's really bad, like when weather gets bad.
What's up?
Little echo on that one, but I heard what's up.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, we can hear you mostly now. Unless it's...
Oh yeah. Say a full sentence
Still not
for
there?
me.
Pad around to get it off of a.
Okay, nope.
Yeah, he is getting a bit warm. We have been an hour and a half.
I moved the pad around.
I'm just trying to move some objects.
Oh, there we go.
Here is a full sentence. To end, I am speaking a sentence.
Yay, we got the whole sentence. All right.
Yep, got it.
Full sentence.
I want to dive in slightly
on
the evil scientist question again of if we have a monster girl, if we sever a centaur at the waist and keep it alive somehow, I've got crazy medical power, is it still a monster? Is it still a centaur?
Yes, it is. Is a ram not a monster because she's missing her horn now? No. Chicken and egg thing or whatever.
Everything that makes her a monster.
Has she though? Because her sister can still transform. She still has an obvious, like, you can imagine what she'd look like if she transforms.
Because we have to get to the gory examples in order to get to like the end of like where thought is, right? Sometimes you got to get to the real nasty before you figure out what you really believe.
Right. I think that science, you need to chop things up to start making classifications. So that's
is someone
that's the way science works.
Get rid of their wrinkles?
It is,
well, I think if you sever the fish part off of a mermaid, is it still a girl or a mermaid? You know, if you sever all of the fish part off of her, yes, gills, or no, because her gills are below the waist.
Paro, I didn't say she wasn't a monster. I said I don't like her.
That is actually
we're
what
talking
he
to the
said.
chat.
Yeah. So yes, I am a psycho, but so the question, I guess, is there's something else that you think makes something a monster that has nothing to do with the actual part. So the question is, what is that? Because the argument comes from if a cat girl with just ears and a tail is not a monster, but a cat girl with ears, tail, and claws is, but then I take both of them and I remove their ears, tails, and claws medically, how is one still a monster and the other one
Because
not?
you're not turning them human, Blaine. You're just mutilating them. Like if I cut off your leg, do you suddenly are you no longer human? I don't get this.
I would be less of a human.
I think Blaine's
Physically, but not
argument
like literally.
is Blaine's argument is chipping at your position. Every time you admit that yes, they are still what they are, even though those anatomical features, you're admitting that these cat girls are monster girls. That the anatomy is irrelevant. Were a monster girl with or without those features.
Here is the thing, because I think I'm starting to get what you guys are saying. It needs to be inhuman looking and something else, like what Paru just dropped. That it needs to be inhumanity and something else. I actually was gonna bring this up, but I would have brought this up in a video I was thinking of making, but I just, videos are hard to make. Basically, they do need to have something else to make them act. They can't be domesticated or integrated into human society. Was another idea I was thinking of. So stuff like Mushoku Tensei, where they just act human. I was gonna be like, no, that's different. That's not it. But yeah, no, there is a little bit of something else, but it's not fully. It's mainly how they physically are.
But there's something else, because if I cut off the animal parts, you're still calling it a monster.
Because it's not suddenly human if you cut off the animal parts. What is this?
But,
I'm holding that down, not because that's something else, because no, you're not something because I cut off part of you. Are you not right-handed because I cut off your right hand?
No, I would transition to being left-handed.
If I cut off both hands, are you no longer right-handed?
I'm no-handed.
No. You'd be like, no,
you would have no hands.
Right-armed.
What is the point of handedness if you have no hands?
Well, you'd just be like, no, I'm right-armed.
I'm right-armed? What would you do with it? Just wave it around? Just poke my wheelchair with it as I drive around the city with the little cups so that I can stick my arms in it while I'm driving around my car? No. Handedness doesn't matter at that point. There's a DNA aspect, there's an internal aspect, there's a part of this where you're in that camp where you're just saying no, whatever the chromatic nature of a monster girl makes it a monster girl. And it's interesting because if these were real, we could have something to say oh yeah, the 24th chromosome that comes out showing this will also then display.
I just thought of something awful.
I've been thinking of it this whole time, so
yeah,
don't worry, you're in good.
I just realized
company.
what you've been hinting at, or not hinting at, but where this logically leads to the modern example of this.
You get me a little bit.
Yeah, I realize what you're saying, and DNA, sure, we'll go with that.
You still have a dominant leg and direction. True, Paru, but your dominant leg can actually be opposite from your dominant hand. I have a left-handed cousin who's right-footed. It's very strange. If I lose an eye, I'm a Cyclops now. Hell yeah, I am. Have you
literally
not
are.
seen
Oh, good grief.
what is that Sandlot?
No, you're thinking of Dan Crenshaw.
Oh. He's a Cyclops too. But no, it's got the guy from Raising Arizona, he's like missing an eye. And it's one of those funny, like they're basically doing the story of Homer, but they're like kids or whatever.
No, Sandlot's the baseball one. I don't think you're.
Yeah, but
I
isn't it
think
like
right.
a Cyclops that like steals the baseball? Or like they
No,
think
it's
he's
a
a Cyclops?
dog.
I think the Cyclops has been brought into the 21st century as a mythological creature, but I'm not sure
Right.
that that's what the Greeks were actually talking about. So,
I always assumed
I
it was
think that
just
there was a
giants.
philosophical thing going on with the Cyclops and not an anatomical thing. But
Oh,
that's
it's Oh
another
Brother, Where
story.
Art Thou? Sorry.
I thought the Cyclops
Yeah, there you
were just
go. Yes.
giants with one eye.
Or they were giants with a single philosophy. Who knows? I mean, he was telling
Yeah.
a story to some very angsty teenagers trying to prove himself. So it's an unreliable narrator within an unreliable narrator. But that's another story. Let's not get into that. We accept Cyclops as a single-eyed being because mythology says so, not because Homer did.
Gotcha.
God, Geminer. Why are you talking about skulls? You can't talk about skulls.
I
You can't do
think
that.
that's the best part and why I'm excited to figure out what our next debate's going to be as well, like while I'm sitting here, because there is no answer and the answer doesn't really matter, but it's so much fun to go through these sort of mental gymnastics. I think it
If
helps
we go
sharpen your
any
brain and sort of
like if we go any further extreme on this, we're gonna begin to like bannable topic. So
it gets very real, like the way that you process your thoughts about, and this is what I love, like I know, Steven, you love just how crazy anime can get and how like the Japanese culture can dive into so many things, right? One of the things that I love so much about anime, that I've loved since I was a kid, is that as a cartoon, as something that was animated, it has no limits and is also able to bring in any number of real world things, even if I have to bring the real world into it. Like something as silly as talking about whether or not a cat girl is a monster girl. We can actually think through what our thought process is as to where we define. Like I know Michael was trying to like not talk about race earlier, but we're deep enough in that we might as well. Like at one point, people thought of different races as being subhuman. And so getting through
Absolutely.
that thought process of where do we finally say, okay, now these two are the same thing. These two might as well be the same. So this argument of like cat girls with just ears and a tail, they might as well be human. We'll put them in the same category, the same bucket as human, right? And then you brought up, of course, the Elephant Man. Like we talk about at what point of deformation do we cease to be human? You know, at one point, the Freak Show, someone who was a monster, they weren't real. And now we have Crippled Jesus and that other guy who are really famous comedians online who are completely deformed in the arm. Like their arms barely do anything. And in the past, they would have been in a freak show. Now they can be a normal functioning member of society, right? Like these thought processes and the way we go about this really does stretch beyond the silliness of Catgirl. But I think that's what's so much fun about it, is we can have the discussion with something that's very like, oh, who cares at the end of the day? But we can walk away with very serious, like, yeah, where do I put the line, or why do I think this way? Where do I get to that point, right? Like, you know, I've got two things. I got cat ears and a cat tail. I call that monstrous. It's inhuman now. We're a monster girl, right? I don't think less of them, but I do define them as something different. And coming to terms with like, where do I put that and how do I keep it going? Can human impregnate cat girl? You know, we get into the species argument, but separate species is a little bit more of a strict definition that we've come up with, right? Like, can you procreate and have that child procreate again, right? Like, very, very clear cut answer on that. Most
Right.
things, scarily enough, can impregnate other things. It's a terrifying reality of life. But will the fetus be viable, and will it actually be able to procreate, are two other questions.
Yeah, you bring up a very interesting point about the history of delineating humanity, and I mean, I'm a bit of a scholar when it comes to Victorian and prior Victorian literature. The Russians in War and Peace quite literally refer to the Germans as a subspecies, which is, I mean, openly, just because they spoke another language, they haven't been ruled, they haven't been ruling themselves that long. And if you want to get into the ancient alien discussion without getting into too crazy into the ancient alien discussion, they allegedly, angelic, alien, whatever you want to call them, I would consider them to be a lot like us, but they found a lot of groups that weren't a lot like us, possibly Cro-Magnon or possibly Neanderthal, and they raised them. But if you look at, to get back to the anime discussion, Japanese society was striated, and there were people that were kept as pets. So there were, I mean, how many animes are there where they reference the bodyguard of the vampiric lord of the manor or the yakuza as being a dog, that he was a dog to his master? I mean, that's more than just a turn of phrase. That was a job position. You know, Dogs of War is a direct reference to all knights under the king. And the king didn't think of them as viable livestock to their daughters. So there was a delineation in society, a striation in society. And not that long ago, 500 years ago, the emperor would absolutely not allow his daughters to sleep with non-royal blood. That's just a fact of history. So what was a cat girl? What was a dog girl? What was a werewolf? I don't think that they were as anatomically transformative as we consider. Mythology has painted that picture, but I don't think that what we refer to as a werewolf in the 21st century was anything more than a man that would go berserk if you pushed his buttons the wrong way. And anime does this all the time, where somebody will manifest superpowers because they just got driven over a certain line. And I think anime expresses it like anime does, by visual means, that they literally transform visibly to the person as opposed to spiritually.
Yeah, I'm
End of
kind of lost
sentence.
right now. Like, I think I see where we were going with this, but I got lost somewhere and couldn't keep up. Again, looking at chat just always throws me for a loop.
It'll do that. It'll do that. So, Michael, is there ever a time where you would call something a cat girl and a monster girl?
Yes, we've found multiple times.
We did it. We won.
What do you mean?
We did
What
it.
do you mean? That was, what was my point at the beginning of this? That wasn't.
I just wanted to have that little clip so that I could have a small victory for myself. Thank you for indulging me. It's like when you make a spelling error and somebody corrects you, you made that other person's life a little bit better. Thank you for making my life a little bit better with that. Update on the poll. Are cat girls monster girls? Yes, they are. Has just come up to 38% to 25% on no way. So it is it is a ever evolving poll here. So
I think I found
guess
where
the question is like, do we have any more salient points that someone wants to make? Like here is an example, here is a thing, here is a trait, here is a specific, I don't want to say category, but like here is a thing, and here's why I think it goes with my argument, and that's why I think I'm right. Do we have any more points?
I do want to say one thing,
Sure.
just like as a clarification. I think if I am wrong about a majority of cat girls being just ears and a tail, I think it's because in a lot of properties nowadays, all animal girls in general, like Raccoon, Raftalia, that there was that one show about the high school where all the girls were just ears and a tail, and then like weird personalities, and all the guys were actual animals. I think in general, a lot of beast girls or like animal girls, whatever you want to call them, are just ears and a tail.
I think that high school one you're talking about, I think they were animals, but it was just representing them as animal girls for some reason.
You're representing it a certain way.
Yeah,
So.
I think that was more just the design, because it would be weird if the dude really wanted to have sex with a koala, but it's okay if she looks like a high school girl, because that's
Maybe.
anime. But so your contention then is that the majority of what we see shown in anime is the cat girl that is just ears and a tail, and because the majority of them fall on that side of, so to go back to my how do I represent this now? To go back here, what you're saying is the cat, like if this is 100, right? So 100% of cat girls in anime. Here's our new scale, right? You're saying that like 90%, 99, 95% of anime cat girls fall into this category, and that only like a few percent fall into your exceptions that would be called monsters.
I think whatever percent is covered by just ears and a tail being changed to cat features, I think those all are basically human and aren't on the monster girl side.
Okay.
And anything more than that, and you're over the line. I just think that the line needs to be set somewhere, and being one, like, because obviously one part off, you're not going to be like, oh, it's inhuman now. Like, not two parts off either. I think a third part off, not even just a third part off, but like those two parts specifically being off doesn't make a girl a cat.
Okay. Okay. Steven, final statements from you.
Yeah, I think we've done a great job of figuring out the difference between a show about animals that appear to the audience as humanoid and shows about supernatural creatures that are cat girls. I think that is the breaking line. And that's kind of what I was going at. Like the show that he just mentioned, that Michael just mentioned, this is a show about animals that have been drawn to appear humanoid for the audience's perception, for the sake of the story. Those are
Okay.
not cat girls. Those are characters that are cats, that are female.
Okay. Let me stop you right there. No, they are definitely cat girls. They're just, he's saying that they're not, they're definitely anthropomorphic. He's just saying they're drawn as what I'm talking about with just the ears and the tail, because it'd be weird otherwise. But they would still be anthropomorphic otherwise. So it would still be
Okay.
a monster girl in that show. Is what I'm trying to say.
I think it would just be a straight up koala.
No, because they still act. Are you saying that it's just two humans in school with a bunch of personified animals.
Yes, that show is literally about bestiality.
No, you're wrong.
Because the whole point is that he meets the Homo sapien girl and is like, "Oh, this is the species I should be with." Like that's the whole show.
No, the show's
Oh,
about how
wow,
he's
that's
supposed to be with
great.
the dog. What are you talking about? He wants to be with
Yeah,
the human,
not to
but
get
he's
into
supposed
a
to be with
whole
the dog. That's
cycle,
the whole show.
not to get into a whole cycle about it, but before Kung Fu Panda 2, I thought that the reason why they had certain animal forms was because of their forms of karate, not because they were actually those animals. Because it was
Oh yeah.
because they were representations of the zodiac in China, which includes animal forms, and that his dad was actually his dad, not adopting him. I don't know why they did that, but I guess they had to. And that he was a panda because he was the panda form of the zodiac spirit of China. It's like there's a tiger form and a koala form, and that these were spiritual representations of actual humans. That if you were to do a live action of Kung Fu Panda, they would all appear human, but would have these forms of karate instead. And I think that that's really what we were discussing when an anime does a show about supernatural creatures and beings. Cat girls are a part of that spectrum. But when a show is dealing with spiritual forms or caricatures, cat girls are something else. And that the story dictates. If the story's talking mythological powers, then they're the kind of cat girls that we've been discussing. But if the story is speaking of metaphor, that this person acts like a cat, like they're always a little waspy, they're always a little conceited, they're very neat, they're very well groomed, and this boy is more like a dog because he's loyal to all of his best friends, that those are non-anatomical animal features. They're just drawn that way so that it's clearer to a cartoon audience. Like Scooby-Doo is actually a dog, but and Yogi is actually a bear, because
Right.
there are human characters standing right next to them. But in other shows, like, I don't know, Mickey Mouse is not necessarily a mouse. He's drawn as the underdog because mice are the underdog in that Disney universe.
Gotcha. So your argument for most of this then is that it's the medium. It's the medium of the anthropomorphization that actually makes something look like a cat girl, as instead of being just a human or just a cat.
Right. Right.
Okay.
It's a caricature, that there's a caricature layer, as opposed to some of these demon forms that are actually what they are. That if you were to do a live action, they would actually look like the way they do in the show.
Okay. Well, I love it. I love it. I can't wait for our next debate topic, because this was, again, like I said, this is too much fun, because I like I like taking the thought process and stretching it and then applying it to something else, or using it and working through. It's like Aesop's fables or any of those like ancient myth stories, right? Where it's like we tell a story about one thing in order to help work through something else in our life. And I think I think these kind of fun discussions will do that more and more. Or they'll just be silly. And if they're just silly, then I freaking love it. But thank you both for jumping in. I have a terrifying piece of news to go over, and we will do that next. Any last words? You guys want to be followed on Twitter or anything like that?
I mean, I got some words. I think you two read way too much into the shows you watch.
Oh, I mean, I could have told you that.
Okay, like that's just right off bat, you two guys read way too much into whatever you're watching, especially when there's no humans around. Like, okay, so that's just one thing. Paruchin said something about vampires being monster girls, even though they're basically human. Yeah, I agree. I don't know if you thought I didn't agree with that. I agree with that.
Yeah, the vampire argument we got over pretty early, so
Yeah.
maybe she missed it.
Last thing, you're talking about anatomy a lot. One of my favorite manga is actually Creature Girls. Just look up Creature Girls and you'll find it. But don't pull it up on stream. Please do not pull it up on stream.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
No, it goes into the anatomy of like their world quite heavily, and I think you'd probably like it if you like anatomy. So,
I do like me some anatomy.
yeah. They also do the dirty in that, so have fun with that. And that's all I had to say. So yeah, this has been Michael and two guys that overthink things.
I'm so glad to have you always. Steven?
I'm not going to spiral into anything more. I would very much enjoy another debate on another specific subject. And to answer some of the statements made in the chat, this is the whole point of media, is to explore the internal process of our brains. This is why we told campfire stories. This is why we invented the roller coaster. This is why we do this. This is why we recommend shows. This is why we listen to music, why we watch sunsets. This is the whole point of having a brain, is to stretch it and work it and stretch it some more. I don't think that there is any bottom to the depth of looking into these things. And I hope that everybody will explore and explore and explore. It's fun. What is the point of language if you don't use it? It's another toolbox, another Lego set, another erector set. And there are boundaries. There is world building. These shows do have solid constructions to them. That's what makes them good shows. And that's it. That's as far as I'm going to go anymore, because it is getting late.
All right. Thank you both for coming in. I'm gonna kick you off, and then we've got just one bit of news that I would like to go over. You've probably already heard of it, but big thanks to both of my guests tonight. Always love seeing you guys in chat, and excited to see kind of what. For now, we'll just sort of play it by ear and see if we have another discussion that pops up, rather than try to force a discussion where one may not lie. Yes, definitely. Thank you, Pop Culture. Thank you. Smash that like button. Hit that share button. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. I am looking forward to growing our community, so that we can talk more and have more input on these sort of things. We are going to go ahead and we're going to end this poll. And right now we've got a 30, 40, 30. Are cat girls monster girls? 40% say no way. 30% say yes, they are. And 30% are more confused now more than ever. Just wondered and thought you would ask. Yes, the idea of the monstrosity of the creature sort of became a here and there topic, going back and forth between, something being truly monstrous or if it is just being, not human, right? Like, at what point are you not human? At what point are you monstrous? Like, we tried to draw it out. But speaking of monstrous, speaking of inhuman, the Doofer Bros are making yet another live action Death Note adaptation for Netflix. I used to laugh at the Netflix live, or not the Netflix, the Death Note live action from Japan that had the scene where Ryuk is floating there and L is looking at Light and turns and then looks back, and Light has just a bag of potato chips in his hand, and then he just eats one all dramatically, and it was like, oh, the potato chip scene done right. And it was the funniest thing because Japan made a couple really, really funny live action adaptations with really bad CG for Ryuk. And then Netflix comes along like, hey, we're gonna make it. And then they said, you know what, let's set it in Seattle. And we were like, uh-oh. Don't set it in Seattle unless you know what you're doing. And then they said, Willem Dafoe is going to be Ryuk. And we said, hey, that's a good decision. I like what you're doing there. And then we didn't really hear a lot until it finally dropped after that. And I said this back then, and I stand to it. I want this to be heard everywhere. When you have an adaptation that is good quality, and you then change the medium, your goal is to make a decision of, can you, with that medium, do a one-to-one accurate and make it fun? Any number of things. If the answer is no, I need you to figure out how to use that medium to make a more interesting or different story that follows enough that the license is worth it. And that's what I wish they had done. And that was sort of a weird thing to say, so let me try to explain this. Full Metal Alchemist to Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, right? Anime from manga, right? A really long-running manga series. And I say long in quotes here because, you know, something that has, 50 to 100 chapters could become a 50-episode series. That translation, a visual comic design or a design that emits a lot of visual in the brain, really works well for a direct adaptation, right? So it's a direct adaptation to go from a manga to a TV series, right? But if you have a really long-running manga and you're like, I want to make a movie about it, you have to stop and say, well, a movie should be 90 minutes max, right? We should keep it to that hour and a half. And you have to say, all right, if I've got an hour and a half and I've got a series that is 100 freaking episodes long or 100 freaking chapters long, I can't really make a movie about the whole dang thing. Because if you do, you end up with M. Night Shyamalan's Airbender, right? Airbender by M. Night Shyamalan was basically a really long trailer for the original series. It was like, hey, check out this setting, next setting, next setting, next setting, next setting, next setting. And you just took a whirlwind through the entire thing, right? And it was like, no, this is the wrong way to go about adapting it into this medium. And when you go to adapt Death Note, and then you say you want to set it in Seattle, and then you want to do this, that, and the other thing, you're like, well, if I set it in Seattle, then people won't complain about this or that, Do something as simple as just don't make it light. You've got the guy who could be Ryuk every day of the week if he just wore makeup in a different way and a crazy outfit that I see walking down the street from time to time when I go to Seattle. Like, Willem Dafoe would make a great Ryuk, but don't make the main character Light in Seattle. Have him be called Lewis, and then just drop the Death Note in Seattle and say, oh, and Lewis picked up the Death Note. And then what you can do is you can say, hey, spoiler alert for Death Note for everybody who hasn't seen a freaking 20-year-old anime. There's a whole alphabet full of crazy good detectives that come from this organization. Let's just pick a different one. So instead of L, we send over O or B or C, like whatever it is, we just send a different letter over, and that's sort of the like code for like, this guy's a really good detective. And then you can have a pretty interesting detective show that takes place in Seattle. And even if it's not that good, you know what we're going to say? We're going to say, you know what? Definitely not as good, but they only had 90 minutes to work with. So how could you make something as intricate as the original Death Note? Rather than just spend the whole time saying, man, that was nothing like Death Note. That was really dumb. That's all we would do. But if you take it and you make it a little different, then it's okay. The same thing goes with like video game adaptations, right? Like if you were to try to adapt a video game into a movie and do it successfully, you have to take like the feeling and the idea, and you have to sort of remove the idea of control. You gotta do all these things to make it different, make it unique, make it different, right? I just said different like 3 times in that sentence because that's the important part. Pop culture, you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your evening. And yes, just like Q from James Bond, X from Triple X. So I've only read so far these headlines. I have yet to dive into anything as far as announcements about what the plan is with this. I have a terrible feeling it's going to be a mini series that will try to redo the original, and my only hope is if they do that they try to basically redo the original Japanese ones and just lean into some of the camp, lean into some of like the weird scenes, and try to stay away from it. But if they could just make it a sequel, Ryuk gets bored again and drops his notebook somewhere else, that would be fantastic. So if the Doofer brothers aren't busy doofing it up and they can hear this, and I will tweet this out up a few times, I'm sure, it would be great if they would just make it a sequel. Fresh off the success of Stranger Things 4 Volume 2, Netflix announced today that Matt and Ross Doofer have renewed their deal to develop multiple projects for the platform and formed Upside Down Pictures, a new production house named for the dimension, blah, blah, blah. Didn't take long into our first meeting with Hillary, where we bonded over films like Jaws, Home Alone, and Speed, to know that we had found a kindred spirit, the Doofer said. It's still Light Turner, and now it's N and Near who gotta defeat him. Hillary's passion for storytelling is perhaps matched only by her passion for the storytellers themselves, for whom she is fiercely protective. No wonder so many writers and directors are drawn to working with her. According to the Doofer Bros, their goal with Upside Down Pictures is to tell the kinds of stories that light them up as young film lovers. Okay, good place to start. The Doofer Butters, yeah. Drop 2 notebooks and battle to be the sole survivor. That would be pretty fun. Like we get what's her face, the other Shinigami, who dropped Misa's book. Stories that take place at that beautiful crossroads where the ordinary meets the extraordinary, where big spectacle coexists with intimate character work. Answer me this. What big spectacle is in the original series? Because I'm pretty sure the only big spectacles are like metaphorical buildings that they're standing on, or maybe a bus crash or a car accident or something. Like there really just isn't that much spectacle. The spectacle is the constant chess match of the two. Upside Down plans to produce a number of series with similar narrative DNA to Stranger Things. So series, again, has me thinking maybe they will go with the series. We'll see. In addition to Stranger Things spin-off show and stage play directed by Stephen Daldry, Upside Down Pictures is also working on an untitled original series created by blah, blah. Also, man, they don't care about anime. The Talisman. But the project that's most likely to intrigue audiences is the studio's upcoming spin on Death Note. Netflix did not announce any hard details about their Upside Down Pictures Death Note, like whether it would be at all related to the studio's 2017 film, but given how poorly that movie and many of Netflix's other attempts at reworking beloved anime classics have been received. It'll be something if Upside Down Pictures Death Note manages to impress when it eventually debuts. Well, that was it. That was basically the you just gave me the headline in like 10 or like Delios or whatever. Reimagining is a global crime. I just want another Tokyo Ghoul live action. They literally made a to-do out of a coworker eating ramen a lot. I think it depends. So I'm gonna be on Brandon's channel tomorrow discussing the new Trigun. Again, I am super hesitant to say it looks good or that I'm excited for it at this point. And part of that is the reimagining. But if you reimagine something as like a much better or interesting or different version, maybe it's worth it. You know, it's sort of like what we want, right? Is we want the Thing, right? Thing comes out and it's amazing. And then we get the Thing again and it's actually a sequel, but it's pitched as like a redo and we're like, "Whoa, that's crazy. That's really fun to do." Probably too complex for a movie if the letter detectives get involved. But they'd be fine pawns for one holder to manipulate into finding the other holder. Yeah, that'd be good. Kakegurui live action was great. Watch it if you have Netflix. I will watch the Kakegurui live action because I'm always interested to see how those come across. I think the issue with reimagining is where you might as well tell your own story. Like if you're reimagining to the point where nothing from the original is back, then who cares? But if you're reimagining because it's been a bajillion years and we should retell this story for a new audience and it needs a few updates, like, sure, we can reimagine that. That's fine with me. You're not excited, but you're allowing a small measure of hope for Stampede. It's so small. It's so small. Honestly, the only hope I have is that it's Studio Orange and they're pretty good with Hoseki no Kuni at making a very interesting world. So hopefully they can make the whole planet interesting feeling, just because they're good at that. But we'll have to find out. It's a sequel like Fire Emblem 3 was. They remade the first game and added a sequel to it. Exactly. Live action Giant Robo and anime Giant Robo. I mean, Pacific Rim's pretty good. It does a lot of what Giant Robot needs to do and focuses more on the human plight, but it was more of a kaiju movie at the end of the day, so it focuses on like man's fight against nature, which is important for a kaiju movie. But doing the problem is like we haven't gotten that Giant Robo where it's Robo v Robo. Like that's interesting because can somebody who's making a giant robot live action make it about the politics? Could they do that? Or would they just make it about the big giant robots? Because at the end of the day, I love me Gundam, but I love the story of Gundam. I love the politics of Gundam. I love kids rising up to fight back against an oppressive planet. I love colonies that are dependent on in one way or another while also having resources, and their decision to fight back. I love that story, right? So could they tell that story or would they just show two robots fighting? I don't know. We haven't really gotten that yet. As much as I loved Pacific Rim, it was man versus monster. It wasn't man versus man. And I don't know. I don't know who I would want to write that. I don't know who I would want to direct it. I don't know who I'd want to even touch that kind of idea outside of Sunrise, Which is crazy because Sunrise does it to sell toys. They have like the least ethical in like a social thinking of your fellow man reason to make some of the best political intrigue in anime because it's all to sell toys. But they do because they know that making it that awesome will make me buy more toys. It's ridiculous. They just tap into so much talent in a way that they really shouldn't be able to with the fact that it's just a damn commercial. Oh, it's crazy. Are they robots or machines? I argue they are machines. Robots work on their own and do not need humans to control them. Yes, but we've colloquially come to call the genre super robo and real robo to sort of specify whether or not it's a robot that does crazy things that aren't realistic, or if it's a robot that's more grounded in, I'll say, reality, but just in potential future technology. You talking about the original Japanese live action giant robo from the 70s, not the 90s anime? See. Well, you confused me there. Astronauts. It was all about selling toys. Ohio always has been. Exactly. So I guess we don't really have any news on Death Note. Well, I will keep my ear out, and as soon as I hear news on Death Note and what the plans are for the Death Note series, you know where to come to hear me talk about it and what I think about it. Like I said, I'm gonna be on bright and early tomorrow with Brandon on the Anime Guy channel to talk about what I think of Trigun. I think it's a panel show, so I think there's gonna be some people there. Again, I really want it to be good. I just am so hesitant on them getting too deep into the negativity of everything. But if you have not seen Trigun, probably don't watch tomorrow's show, or watch it but keep it muted just to support, because there are some pretty heavy spoilers for me that I need to get out, and I know the Anime Guy is usually Brandon's usually pretty good at letting spoilers get said here and there. So if you're spoiler feared on Trigun, be wary tomorrow. Johnny Soko? Good question. I don't know what you're talking about. Well, rip. Yeah. Have you not seen Trigun? When I search Johnny Soko, it comes up Giant Robo. Funny. Yes, rip on that. Gundam can be done if they swap World War II fighters with Gundams. That's what the anime was doing. Yeah, I mean, it's all... I would even say it would be like Britain and all of its colonies, like from us to South America to India to, Chinese islands, as far as all that's gone. Haven't finished Trigun, don't want to pick it back up yet. Okay. Yeah, and it's unfortunately the thing that I think it's spoiling is literally like last 3 episodes. Thank you for coming on tonight, Michael. Wonderful discussion. We will catch you next time. Johnny Sacco and his giant robot versus the Gargoyle Gang before my time. Dude, you know how much stuff was before my time that I've still seen? A lot. I've seen so many things, but that is not one of them. But my time also started in 1990, so there's so much media before my time. Yeah, not one I've seen. Thank you for bringing it up. I will look into that. With that, thank you everyone for being here. I hope this was as fun for you as it was for me. Like I said, I look forward to doing this more in the future, and we'll just have to find out what we fight on next. Because I love stretching the brain, and I love doing arguments because they make you figure out why you think something, and sometimes wondering why you think something is something people don't do. They just say a thing and they think that that's just what is, and never really get to the point of saying, this is why I think that is, and let me back it up. So Wonderful, wonderful fun exercise we had today, Stephen, as well. Thank you very much for being a part of that. And let's hope, fingers crossed, that we get a long form Death Note that's more of a sequel than a remake. And I will catch you all next time. Kampai, everyone.